Indices is in fact a project that wants to assess the following things, namely, what is the impact of digitization in the sectors? We have the impression that there is a lot of indirect impact when institutions have digital assets that is insufficiently monitored and is insufficiently translated into indicators. Now, it is important to capture those to convince funding authorities that we are doing good work. So I think the Commission by long has understood that we are not seeking for profit in the sector, and that tickets and so the number of visitors are an important indicator, but there is so much more going on in the reuse of the digital contents that we make. And Indices wants to study whether we can translate those into indicators. And so we are looking also to see what kind of value is this, what is the value chain that is behind this, and how can we then propose actions to increase this impact. So in fact, the work that has been done already in the impact playbook in Europeana is an important aspect of this. Also, the work that has been done in the enumerate surveys is a basis for what we are doing. But we start from a more philosophical approach, and many of you know Pierluigi Sacco, the academic who coined this term of culture 3.0 and the participatory space of culture that we from Europeana try to feed into and to offer our services to. And so we try to have a quite broad view on what the missions are in the cultural sector and how important issues could be measured. And Simon Tanner, that most of you also might, and I would say must know, Simon Tanner also worked on these issues of how can we prove the impact that we have with cultural heritage on health and well-being, on sustainable societies, on social cohesion, etc. So what is Indices developing? First of all, an open observatory. And I'll put immediately the link to the Indices portal if I find it back somewhere here. Wait, I'll start another browse windows because you can already log in there and make an account. Then we save a lot of time. So I will put in the chat, if I find the chat, quickly a link to that participatory space of Indices. What we will offer there is an analytics dashboard. This is still in full development, where you will see, for example, social media interactions with content. And we use a specific technology from Web Lizard to actually scan the web for this kind of contents. And then the participatory space, to which you are all invited, and we also would encourage you to use it with your institutions. So if you are an aggregator, this participatory space is also there for you. The whole idea is that the participatory space in the end will become a part of Pro in some way or another. It could be through single sign-on or through co-hosting or whatsoever. But the work that we are doing there will be an integrated part of the Europeana services that you will be able to use as an aggregator also. And then the self-assessment tool on which I will be talking today. Here an example of the kind of statistics that we aim to show, and it's really breathtaking what these people of Web Lizard can do. So really looking at trends in the web, in social media, in how content, cultural heritage content is circulating, how it is used and reused. And I think once we can really start documenting this and documenting how, for example, elements of Roma community heritage is spreading through Europe, or the magnificent project of Antonella that is so close to my heart, Pagode, where we discuss how Chinese heritage has found its way in European heritage institutions. So these kind of things we want to show, how it is then used, copied, reproduced, and circulates. And this will help you to document your funding proposals, to convince the authorities that you're doing good work, that your museum collections are impacting people. Now, it is ambitious. So I think Marco and I realize very well how ambitious this is, but okay. You will find on the participatory space the self-assessment tool in development. There is not much there to see. Most I will show in these slides at this moment. Now, what do we want to do in this tool? The whole idea is that we go a little bit further than the existing tools that you can already find. And for your information, I listed those in the slides, and the slides will be available, of course. So if you're interested in browsing through existing tools that measure your performance as an institution, there is the Digital Culture Compass Tracker, there is the Collections Trust benchmarks, there is the very interesting Microsoft, but it's commercial, of course, Education Transformation Framework that you can get a lot of inspiration there. There is the Belgian tool of my colleague Hans van der Linden, Digitale Maturiteit, but it's in Dutch. So we still need to translate this. The Den Academy has, in English language also, in Dutch and in English, has a lot of tools for you. And of course, the Enumerate Observatory. So have a look at these tools. You can I will maybe during the presentation share some links that you can already try out. So we want to go beyond that. And in what way? Well, a few important ways. First of all, we see that most of these instruments start from the collection, from the digital collection. And they think about, oh, now that I've digitized my collection, what can I do with it? Oh, damn it, it's a 20th century collection and most of these assets are copyrighted by external holders. So nice that I have digitized 500,000 items, but I cannot do anything with it online. That is what sometimes happens. That's of course not the smartest move. So starting with just digitizing collections is for us a totally wrong perspective. The right perspective is starting totally the other way around. And so what we want to do in the self-assessment tool is turning things over and saying, listen, the more important thing is what do you want to do for which user communities? And what do you need for that? And maybe you can smartly digitize parts of your collections and invest more in the translations, in the metadata, in the copyright clearing, etc., so that you can really use it for your communities. So it's a kind of starting from thinking about the user community, thinking about what their requirements could be, and then trying to see what does it mean for digital collections, selection, digitization, and curation in the end. And we more and more are doing this through crowdsourcing. Think about Crowd Heritage project where many of us have been working on these tools from NTUA to annotate collections. So instead of an inside-out perspective, we are thinking about outside in. Now, the part that we developed already is unfortunately the first part, the classical part. That is the best developed at this moment because there were so many examples already. And it is for the part B that we really want to reach out to the aggregators, to your networks, to your input, to make it better, because we cannot have these perspectives on all that. And so the whole idea is that we have these online interactive surveys on digitization, on target audiences, on value chains. We offer a kind of report for each institution, and then we offer this. There is a lot on legal recommendations in Indices. There is a whole work package on that. There are case studies that we highlight, and this analysis and this observatory of tools. Now, what I want to do, and to give you one example, it's a very small draft on what you would get when you fill out these forms. The idea is that you would get a kind of guided response. So as an institution, you start filling out a survey, and depending on your answers, when you finish the section, you will get some guidance. You will get some basic statistics from other organizations and where you situate. It's not a kind of leaderboard, but it's really saying, okay, 2/3 of institutions claim they have digitized a certain percentage, and how do you relate to that, etc. And then you will get pointers to aggregators like you, or institutions, to experts, to forums, to debate. Okay, so there are now 3 forms, and I will put them in the chat. So there is an onboarding form. Wait, I'll take another link here, and I'll post these links in the chat already. I'll put the chat here and you can explore them. You can freely, because these are Google Forms. This is not the real version, and these are the demonstrators. And so you can freely fill them out, even if you don't know the correct answer. It's just for you to see what you think about the questions. So not the Google form, because we will not use Google Forms. We will implement it in the participatory space. But we want to see from you, hey, these questions, no, that doesn't work, or sorry, there are too many questions that need 5 people to get the answers. We need another approach also. Because I will ask now in a Mentimeter during this session, while you are looking into these forms, trying to fill them out, I will ask for your reactions. Because that is the value now for us, but of course you will be kept informed about the results, and you will be invited to join our efforts. But for the moment, on these 3 forms, so the onboarding, the digitization, and the participation, we would like to have your impressions. If you do think, well, I will not have the time to look at the 3 forms, sorry, Fred, well, just pick the one that interests you most and try to engage with it. In the meantime, open another window, because I will run a kind of Mentimeter, but we still have some time. I first let you know these forms. So did I share the 3 forms? I think so, yes. And yes. We ask now for the email for a simple reason. We want to connect the answers of the 3 forms, but these forms are not used. So the answers, as I said, what you fill in doesn't need to be right, because we will delete all these answers. We are not using this as the real forms, and it will be on the participatory platform. So this is just for you. The email addresses I will use to keep you informed about what we are doing. But don't worry about the data because they are totally not used. They are fake data. You will see that many of my students responded to the form, so they are not even cultural heritage institutions, but they were the first testers. So, and I think it's already a very interesting remark by that Antonella sent me privately, that she says, hey, but the usage of forms is an important aspect. We are studying this in citizen heritage in the project that we jointly run. And indeed, we will also integrate this kind of information on what will then be done with these data, certainly when we start integrating them. But I would say go ahead with trying out these forms. And in the meantime, I have again a kind of Mentimeter for you. I will start the, wait, I will, no, I will do it in a different way. So I will present the Mentimeter and I will share that screen. So if you go to menti.com, and I will put the code in the chat. The code for Menti is this here. And I'll now share this screen. So, first question is, do you have already an experience with self-assessment tools? Did you have experience? Because that is what we need to know. One of the things that we are discussing is that we want to work further on enumerate, but enumerate focuses a lot on digitization. So we are thinking that this should not really be our priority anymore. So we would include enumerate, but we want to expand on it, of course. We got a lot of input of the Europeana Foundation team, of Nicole McNeely in particular, to contribute to this self-assessment concept, and people from Sound and Vision like Raza Bossite. So we had a good team that is working on that. So I see that at least 4 people did already. So if you have experience with that or criticisms that you can put them in the chat on what or you can open your mic and say something about it. I have 7 responses. Do I wait for more? Yes, I will wait a few seconds and then I'll move to the next question. And so the 3 forms that I communicated will stay online. It's our draft. And so you are free to look at them later also and to send us some feedback. Because in the end, we want a tool that is also useful for you. If you are an aggregator, for example, that you think, well, I would like to use this with my members, and then we need certainly some input.
Brett, can I ask something about the forms?
Yeah.
Are they meant to be used as a kind of a complementary cluster of information gathering? So you expect the 3 of them to always be supplied, let's say, in conjunction, or they are also
Okay. No. So in the concept of the participatory space, depending on your interest, you will focus on what you are looking for. So when you enter the participatory space, you will be able to say, okay, I'm a small organization that really needs to get digitization right. And there are still thousands of such institutions, and in Photo Consortium we meet many of those smaller institutions that still do not have a database, that still have questions about metadata, etc. So these will maybe go to this digitization part, and that will be already a lot for them. There are, of course, more higher-end institutions that already are totally into 3D, etc. And others are really exploring decolonization of their metadata, user engagement, participation, etc. And you see that here among us, the first answer already gives a ranking. So if you can indicate what in your mind is the priority of the members of your organization, the people you know in the sector. So we are interested in what you think there. And I see with 6 participants that we are getting another. I will see if I can show the participants also for me. Yeah, we are 17, so I will wait for some more answers. Please feel free to join this discussion by going to the Menti and
Fred, I am critical in my replies. I hope that you like the comments. I'm not just a yes person, as you know. I hope that
no, I was counting on your critical eye and experience.
I am offending somebody, but I'm trying to be critical in a positive way.
Yeah, no, but that's the whole point here. And so I will also afterwards look into the chat. It's difficult for me during the session, of course, but the chat will be saved. So I will indeed the last question in the Menti will be a form where you can freely add comments also. So the last question will be will give you really the possibility to give some comments.
Fred, was it a conscious choice to keep issues regarding advocacy, funding, financial frameworks out of this priority list?
Yeah, we, for example, I also left out inclusion and diversity, ecology, so all these kind of mission priorities that institutions could have, or indeed their eternal quest for funding, because that's not something that we are going to offer solutions for. So what we will offer are best practices in user engagement, in improving impact, in integrating digital processes. So we focused on a narrow set of digital transformation aspects. That is true. But depending on your inputs, it could be that we change track. That's why we do these rounds and do these surveys.
Well, I don't think it's a bad thing that you're focusing on a certain scale of topics to be questioned and to be addressed, because you can't be everything to everyone. So
yeah, indeed, we focused on the expertise that we had on board. So I will move to a next question, if possible here. Yeah. What would you want to gain from self-assessment? And that's a word cloud, so you can more freely answer here. So if you would use a self-assessment tool for your organization, What would you want to gain there? What would you want to find? Improving efficiency, that could indeed be something. Improving the efficiency of processes, for example. I'm sorry that I'm drinking while speaking, but it's so incredibly hot in this room that I'm boiling over. I hope it's not the same for you guys. I think we will break etiquette and allow each other to take a sip to survive. Yeah, the spotting areas to improve. Well, that's the final idea of the self-assessment tool, that you might come to the tool thinking, I need to improve my digitization process, and discover that, oh, in fact, I read so much here in the participatory space about diversion and inclusivity, about what kind of metadata, and I never thought about that. So maybe I need to change my priorities a bit. And we had these experiences, people who start digitizing collections, catalographing them, and then discover that the metadata are, since they are historical metadata, are very fine for historians, but not so useful for general public, or maybe in some cases quite offensive for the general public. And then the problem arises. Then you have hundreds of thousands of records and you realize I cannot just open it to the public. So what we want to do in this self-assessment is point people to these problems and to spot risks, and easy wins, a good idea also, management support, improvement. Yes, again, these are already a few things that we didn't fully map, so that we can. So for me, this is already, I'm learning. I'm not sure it's the same for you, but for me, it's successful input. Shall I move to the next question, or are still people thinking about what they want to contribute? And so the next question is, would you be interested, and that's a quick question that to answer, would you be willing to support us in deploying it with your institution or institutions or members, or depending what role you have, then one of the difficult discussions that we have with the Horizon 2020 office, is that they wanted classical indicators. How many tickets, how many people attending, what is your revenue model, etc. And we are trying to teach them that in the cultural heritage sector, the value change is different, and they are open to that. We had a very nice meeting now with a group of people from the Commission, and they are open, but they say it needs to be measurable. It needs to be smart, as they say. So measurable. So talking about brilliant new society, etc., they fully agree. But they say, where are the measurable data? So that's a little bit the problem. I'll move on maybe. We have until 12, I think. So I'll move to the next question. Would you agree with the following statements? We need better performance data for obtaining funding. Implementing a kind of leaderboard, namely the badge. So our first idea was we will give a badge to an institution. You are a tier 3 institution or a tier 2 institution. The idea was you can then go to your management and say, listen, if we improve on user engagement, we can move from tier 3 to 2. And we can convince the city government to give us more money. So that was the naive idea. I don't know whether you share these ideas. And so indeed, what we are now more and more focusing on is to see how all the activities that we all started to do on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., how we can better monitor those and use them as evidence of user engagement. But then we need more refined data. We need to better understand who are the communities who join us, and most importantly, which are the communities that we miss as institutions, who is not present. You know that Sophie is a musicologist and still a very active correspondent for leading newspapers in Belgium on music. But when I go to a classical music concert, I'm often one of the youngest there. And that is really a problem because often it's full house, it's magnificent work, but we miss certain audiences, and documenting that is so important to understand, okay, we are successful, the room is again full, but they seem to have quite gray hair on average. So what is wrong there?
Yeah, Fred, you know that these are questions, of course, that people have been asking for years. Definitely now that more and more means to make statistics of audiences are coming to the fore. There's now a theory that just this is a side note, but that loving classical music is a phase in life. So we shouldn't be worried that all those heads in the concert halls are gray, because in 10 years, new gray heads will be there of people who are in that phase of their lives.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not
could be.
entirely sure, but that's now
Yeah,
a
yeah.
running hypothesis.
No, and that's why you need decent statistics and decent analysis. And that is often lacking. So the funding authorities are asking for quite simplistic statistics. And so we as a sector need to show that you can give better statistics. So we have still a lot of work to do. So this is a first presentation to outsiders of the project. And so the critical remarks are certainly welcome. And what kind of data do you already collect to monitor impact? Are you already collecting data that you find important to share? So social media, indeed. And that is more and more generally accepted and even required. So in Horizon 2020, user engagement statistics are a requirement. You need to come up with these stats. In the CEF, we came a long way, so it's still not the basic statistics that count in a CEF evaluation. We usually show it, but they focus more on the outputs that were in the contract, of course. And librarian data, yeah, that's interesting. So there are a lot of internal statistics also that you can monitor. Attention. I think there is a large agreement that social media is what you should gather. Maybe a difficult question. Do you think that in your organization you monitor somehow the activities of your staff? Like what was in Julia's slides, namely how many time do they have to work on user engagement, or to have suppose you have staff in your digitization department. Do they have meetings with the curators? Do they have meetings with the educators of the museum, or the audience development team, or the marketing? These kind of things are also maybe things that you should assess. Access to the website, yes. Okay, in the interest of time, I will move forward and yeah. Okay, yes, and I see that the discussion in the chat, I'm reading it, so I didn't reply there, but I'm reading it. And indeed, the questionnaire as it is too long, and that I think anyone agrees. And info on areas of improvement, very important, yes. Yeah. I had a last slide with suggestions for the 3 survey forms, but I see that those that there are also already in the chat, so I can look there. I will make a copy of that because I think in a few minutes you will have to go. But anyway, many thanks of participating here. I will select the chat. Paste it for my documentation. Okay. Yeah, these are good suggestions. Yeah, well, to connect impact with values, that is something we do at the project level. And so on the participatory space, we will have a lot of to say about that. And that is...
I guess that a cultural institution that wants to measure its impact should measure on the basis of the values that have a priority for that institution. There are institutions for which the value is more financial sustainability because they are lacking
funds,
financial resources. Others that are safe for the financial resources because they have a public funding that is secured, but they are lacking visibility. So depending on the values that they are looking for, the impact can have a different meaning.
Yeah, I think we need to, that's why we will not use the Google Forms. We will make a more interactive road for the institutions, where the whole idea is that the onboarding form will lead them to their priorities. And so indeed, not everyone should answer all the questions because that is impossible, it's way too long. But a good point, I think that is essential. Otherwise, people will just drop out and will not.
Yeah, and there are questions that are not connected with the real interest of that specific institution because it is a self-assessment. So,
so there must
this need of customizing is always important.
Yeah, we are thinking about an interface where you can check your interests first, where you can indicate this interests me, and then you get a few questions on that. But
that
not too many indeed,
sense.
because otherwise it won't work at all. Okay, I think we need to, in respect of the program, let me find the program again. I always lose it somewhere. We need to, where is it? I again managed to close the program.
It's time for the lunch
Here.
break anyway. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, we have to close. And I thank you a lot for your inputs and your engagement and the inputs that you gave. So we will be following this up with you guys. And thank you for the comments also. So, ciao, have a good lunch break, and then we'll see each other maybe in one of the next sessions.